myself again, but it's the only way.
Good morning, welcome to NUFC Matters with me, Steve Wraith, and Liam Kennedy. How are you, Liam?
All good, busy as ever.
Yeah.
It doesn't get much busier than this month of the year. The crazy summer transfer window, as mad as that can be, is just condensed into 4 weeks of absolute lunacy on the transfer front. And for once, in a long, long time, Newcastle United are at the very forefront of that.
Yeah, it's great to see. As always, we'll have a lot of questions to get through. We'll take some off Twitter because we go out at 10:30 in the morning. Sometimes people can't watch live. So Stuart Taylor was first in last night with this question. With January being notorious for getting transfers done, would you live with 2 strikers, a centre-half bought, or 2 centre-halves and 1 striker bought? He mustn't have realised that we've got Kieran Trippier in. But I guess he means, would you be happy if we brought 2 strikers in and a centre-half before the end of the window, along with Trippier, and then that was all of our business concluded? Would that keep us up?
Yeah, depending on the quality of the player, it's definitely got potential to. Like I've said to everybody numerous times, I'm not really getting hung up massively on the numbers. I'm not getting hung up on the fees, the amount of people through the door. Of course, I've got a number that I would like to see come through the door, but I think it has to be understood. It is a very difficult month, and I think that the owners now are finding out firsthand how difficult this month can be. I would urge everybody to try and stay on that cliff, stop jumping off. There's a lot of people getting very emotional, very critical, very early. There are mitigating circumstances, and I do know a lot of people don't like to hear it, but let's talk facts. Newcastle United aren't trying to hoover up rubbish from the bargain basement, which they have been in previous windows. It's easy to get players who clubs want to sell. It's easy to get players that nobody else wants. Newcastle aren't in that market. They're actually shopping in the sort of mid to high end market. They're trying to get players that will make a real difference. They're trying to get players that would make a real difference if Newcastle United was sitting 10th in the division. Players that can potentially step them up into the European places. They may be shooting a bit high in this window, but I'm not going to criticise them for that at all. They're trying to get good players in who will not only be good for Newcastle United now, but good for the future. And they're going for players that clubs don't want to sell. It's even harder to get clubs to sell. And Kieran Trippier deal was the outlier in this trend. It's even harder to get clubs to sell when it's really early in the window and they don't want to sell. Why would they accept any offer now? This is why it's a difficult one, because the need for players is now because of the circumstances and the run of games that Newcastle United have. But realistically, the best business that Newcastle United were ever going to do was probably going to be towards the back end of this window, because that's when time runs out and you really find out whether clubs want to take the money that's on offer. And they might try and squeeze a little bit more, and Newcastle United will probably end up paying it. That's the thing. At this moment in time, let's take Lille as an example. So you've got Lille, who do not want to sell their centre-half. They've made that quite clear. Or they do at a certain price. Then that certain price might be bumped up a little bit when it's very close to being met. That's a club who don't really want to sell, or may sell at the end of a window when squeezed to do so. There is no squeeze. Newcastle United do not have a strong hand at this point in the window. They do have a very strong hand at the end of the window. You'll probably find at the end of the window football clubs who want to get rid of players who maybe weren't on the radar but would come on will start offering players to Newcastle United because they know the cash is there. At this stage, though, Newcastle United have got the list and are working through it. And they're finding the clubs aren't ready to jump and bite. Like I mentioned earlier, Kieran Trippier was the outlier in this one. And what you had there was a player who decided he wanted to leave, who'd been a good servant to the football club, and the club were loyal to the player. And when the player said he wanted to leave, the club said, okay, we'll let you leave. They didn't want him to leave, but they would let him leave. That's not happening at all other clubs. That's not happening. That is actually quite a rare situation. So I think that was the easiest deal Newcastle United will probably do in a long, long time, that they had a club who didn't want the player to leave, but were loyal to that player's wishes and allowed him to leave, and they got the deal done with relative ease. moving forward, they're going to have a lot of this Lille situation. They're going to have a lot of the Sevilla situation, the Rem situation with the centre forward link last night at Kitike. They're going to have really troublesome times trying to get clubs to persuade. If I don't want to get rid of something, why would I get rid of it? I don't want to. I'll tell you no, or I'll say you need to pay through your eyes through your nose, sorry, to buy that footballer. And the card that isn't in Newcastle United's hand is time. Time is the essence to them. But with the window, clubs don't have to bite. They don't have to sell immediately. Like I say, those situations on a Botman, on others, with that cash dangled, there might be a fixing, a bringing together of heads at certain boardrooms around Europe where offers have been placed with days to go and go, do you know what we could do with that money? And they might say, go on, see if we can get a bit more out of them. And those deals might get done. At this stage, it's too early in the window for any of these deals to get done when football clubs don't want to sell them. If the clubs wanted them to go, you would see deals done now, but that's not the market Newcastle United are shopping in. They're trying to take good players who are good players for their clubs at present. Talking about the centre-half at Sevilla, Carlos. He's the main centre-half of that football club with the French international who plays alongside him. I mean, they're not going to want to lose. They're second in the division, I think, in La Liga.
Yeah.
They're not going to want to lose their best centre-half, basically, or one of their best two centre-halves and then have to replace him. They're not going to be easy sellers. This is the tough thing. These are easier deals to do in the summer when it's a level playing field, when there's a bit more time. You can focus minds a bit more. But in January, it's too short. And we're not at the stage in January where a lot of deals get done. Tell me that there's 1,000,001 deals going on elsewhere. There isn't, because it's not a great month for a start. And secondly, it's a difficult month to get clubs to sell players because they know they have to replace, and they've got their own ambitions. What I would say is one thing I mentioned earlier, that they're shooting a little bit high, maybe, and I don't disagree with them on doing that, is that the need for players. I wondered if they might have desperately tried to maybe overpay for a couple of loans and get some players in, but they've got the targets and they're sticking to their targets. And
Well, they may well do that towards the back end of the window if they fail to get any permanent across the line, I guess. So,
I
it's going to be.
I think the loans will be used. I think they'll definitely do the loan stuff, but that again, will be later on. I'm just wondering if they could have got maybe somebody in short notice. I'm waiting back for confirmation on when the cut-off date is from the Premier League. Wait there, I'm just going to check my emails now.
Well, Craig Goff, we'll go to Craig Goff's question. He says, morning both. I'm not sure how true it is, but if Wood has a release clause in his contract, me personally, I think it would be a great signing. He'd do a great job. What we need is to get goals, especially with Trippier, Fraser and Shelby there crossing the ball. What do you think? I mean, Wood's been linked. He's obviously one of our relegation rivals. Is that likely that he's going to come? And is there any substance in the rumour that there's a release clause in his contract?
Yeah, I'll quickly explain what I was just waffling on a little bit about there at the end there. Somebody set us off on a red herring this morning, suggesting that there was mentioned on Sky Sports that the cut-off deadline for players because of the Friday night game this weekend was Thursday lunchtime. So I've been in a frenzy this morning thinking, I need to get an answer. I need to get an answer for the listeners to give them a definitive answer. If it's Thursday, it's noon the previous working day. So it's still Friday. The cut-off day for any signing to play on Saturday is noon on Friday. With regards to Chris Wood, I think he'd be an absolutely fantastic signing for Newcastle United. I think he's exactly what they need. He'd be a player who lead the line, is a right handful in the Premier League. Isn't the best. I'm not going to say he's a technical player. There isn't a lot of technique about him, but he's a decent finisher. He's a handful. How do you get Burnley to sell somebody like that, though? Speaking to my contacts over that end, he's the only striker that they've got on their books who was contracted beyond the summer. He's the one that they're pinning their hopes on. He's not somebody that it's a bit like Burnley if they had suddenly become awash with cash, suddenly trying to buy Callum Wilson. It wouldn't happen. Newcastle United would not sell. But of course, as Luke Edwards has suggested, and look, I heard it suggested on Sky. I heard talk of it when I was listening to Talk Sport as well last night. There's enough murmurings now to think that there must be something in this. We've put our feelers out in Newcastle World to his agency and his agent to see if we can get some answers. Realistically, it's a confidential situation. They're probably not gonna sort of throw around answers like that, whether there is a clause or not. But let's hope there is a clause. And I suspect it will be a deal Newcastle. It would have to massively overpay for a player of his age and ability. But if there's a 25 million clause in there, would it be daft to go out and spend 25 million on a guy who's a proper centre forward, who has a good fitness record, who'll play every single game between now and the end of the season? Callum Wilson can't ever say he'll do that. He'd play every game between now and the end of the season and chip in with goals and be a right handful and lead the line. Give others around him the opportunity to feed off what he can pick up and win and hold up and things like that. Look, I think that'll be a great signing. But again, speaking to people at Burnley with regards to him and Tarkowski, it just looks like a non-starter with regards to the club themselves, that they've got no intention. My understanding on Tarkowski is that his most likely course of action would be to see out his contract and go on a free in the summer and assess his options. Because I can imagine, even though he'd be 30 years old or so, there will be a lot of clubs, and I think there'll be a few in the top six who'll want to sign a player of Tarkowski's experience in the Premier League and ability, and bring him in maybe as a third or fourth choice centre half. I think you'll have some good offers in the summer. Of course, I think Newcastle United will be part of that conversation in the summer.
Gary Pendleton's wanting to know, are we getting messed around with inflations to players' prices? Is there an agenda against this? There was a lot of rumours, people saying that some teams wouldn't even deal with us, which I said was rubbish, because agents tend to run, football, behind the scenes. So, I mean, is there a sense of that?
I think they're finding all deals are relatively difficult to do for a variety of reasons. I wouldn't say it's because clubs don't want to deal with Newcastle United. I would say clubs do want to deal with Newcastle United, but they're not dealing with the Newcastle United of old. They're dealing with Newcastle United where we've seen so many column inches devoted to the fact that the richest club in the world. It is going to be a moniker that carries with them that issue that they're going to get the tax on top of what people would normally pay. It goes without saying. If you're selling a house and all of a sudden the biggest property developer in the area comes along and says he's gonna buy it instead of any Tom, Dick or Harry that's sort of hoovering around, looking around, trying to put a bid in with the estate agent. If a property developer turns around and says, no, I'm going to buy that and I'm going to make it into the best house that the world's ever seen, and I'm going to compete with all of the best houses that there are around. Absolutely. I mean, this is a rubbish analogy, Steve. Tell us to shut up, by the way.
No, keep going.
I feel like I'm digging myself a hole here. And somebody, you're going to sit there and say, I think I can squeeze an extra 30 or 40 grand out of these lot. I think I can. And that's the way football clubs are looking at it. They see Newcastle United. As soon as Newcastle United, they pick the phone up. Hello, it's Newcastle United here. Right, well, I think Newcastle's here. I think we can get a few more quid out of this, really. I think we can. And I think they're finding that at the moment. But there comes a point. If a football club gives the outward impression that they do not want to sell a football player, but secretly they would quite happily take a lot of money and are just trying to squeeze, like I say, the last week of the window will become quite interesting. That's when you might see people come back and say, oh, do you still want to buy such and such? Or, we only want an extra 2 million or whatever, and deals get done. I'm certain. One thing I'm not losing faith. I'll be honest with you. I'm like a lot of fans out there. I am losing a little bit of faith that any new recruits will walk through the door before the weekend. Please don't get too down about that. I still believe, me personally, despite that debacle last weekend, I still believe we've got better players than Watford. I do. And I still believe we're a better team than Watford. I still think we can beat them on Saturday, even with just one addition of Kieran Trippier. I really do. I still
It's
think
the more important game. Watford was always the more important game. I mean, I think in the bare reality of it, the following day, I watched Match of the Day. I was obviously at the game, but on reflection, it's why I tend not to tweet about the game on the night, on the night of the game. No knee-jerk reaction from me these days, but we created chances. We came up against a goalkeeper who was in outstanding form. We had 2 goals disallowed, but we weren't very good at all. I'm not defending the performance, but, on another day we would have won that game with a different, with a different result. And, if we'd won that game 2-1, still with a poor performance, people would have been delighted to be in the next round and would have all been talking about Luton Town and how they were going to beat them in the next round and go on a cup run, and Newcastle were going to beat Watford. And it's just the way football is, we've been around the block long enough. Let's crack on with the questions. Yeah. Terry Armstrong says, the reality of the January window has hit the owners. Clubs know that we've got money and are playing hardball. What is worse, panic buying or not buying at all?
Well, not buying at all is absolutely the worst, because they do need out of the squad this summer, and I don't believe that's on the agenda at all. But also, I think panic buying is problematic as well. I think they've got to be careful not to ridiculously overpay. It does set a dangerous precedent, but they've got to get that balance right by not just not doing anything. It's a really interesting way of putting it. I think they will do stuff. Whether it's I've said this all along, whether it's the transformative window that they wanted it to be, is another thing altogether. But I do believe they'll get at least 4 new faces in the door between now and the end of the window.
Yeah, Terry, you do have your moments with questions. Like it was a good one. We'll give him that. Rich Joblin finishes up on Twitter. He says, transfer window being played out so publicly is surely not helping negotiations on players coming in. Every man and his dog knows we're desperate. Do we think the window is not going the way that the owners planned?
Of course they would have. I think they would have liked at least three new faces in. They've only got 1. I think they would have liked 3 by now. But it was never going to be that easy. Like if you're trying to buy players that clubs don't want to sell, and you want to buy players that other clubs want as well, because they're good players, not because they're rubbish, or they're good value, that they're good footballers, you're always going to have up days and down days. And maybe yesterday was a bit of a down day. Maybe it wasn't. We don't really know what's going on behind the scenes. I think they're going to be hard pushed to get another couple in, which is what they wanted before the weekend. But they might get 1.
Yeah, okay. On to our live chat. Big shout out to the moderators who were in there this morning. Thanks for doing the work. Tom says, what's the latest on
Ekitike?
Ekitike, yeah, and any other signings?
Might not be exactly correct, but that's what I'm going with anyway.
Yeah, I'll leave it to you. Mornings are too, but pronunciation's bad enough, but on a morning it's even worse.
So, yeah, he's a player. It's my understanding. Was tipped off towards the back end of last year that there might be somebody who wasn't obvious, potentially coming in from League One, a younger player. And it sounds like to me it was probably this one. If that is the case, he's somebody that's been on their radar for a good while now, probably since about November, early December. Is it a deal that can get done? Again, are we looking at a football club who are willing sellers? I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and see. He's a really highly regarded player in that part of the world. So will they jump at the first bid that comes in, or one of the first bids? It's going to be a really tough one. But I think if they sign him, they'll definitely sign another. And I think that shows the market they're in. They've had to adjust what they were going to do. I don't think the original plan was to sign 2 strikers. But I think the plan now might be to sign 2, because they're going to have to replace experienced Callum Wilson and bring that youthful sort of backup in, which is what that plan always was.
Darren Lee Wells reckons that we're going to get him in potentially in the summer. He's saying we're now linked to Walker at Man City. That's doing the rounds this morning. He also says Patrick Schick would be a quality signing, but I don't see this one happening. What's your thoughts on those two?
I've never seen it. Does he mean Kyle Walker?
Maybe. Just says Walker. Must be Kyle.
Wouldn't really make a lot of sense, would it? When you've just signed Kieran Trippier?
Anyway. Paper talk.
Yeah, I'd be surprised. I don't know. Honestly, I've not heard that one. Schick is a player that has always been on Nixon's agenda. somebody that he'd look, but Newcastle have been looking at for about 3 years now. I think, again, what you will find with Schick at this moment in time is a football club who will not want to sell their number one striker. I think that's the problem in January. These deals are really tough to do, So we'll wait. You never know. So certain clubs are all different. Some might bite, some might not. But I think that's a really tough deal to do.
Yeah, it is. John from QTech says, with all the hysteria over transfers, is it not best to wait for the club to launch official bids? Then you know the interest is at least real. People are getting disappointed about deals not coming off when in reality they were probably never targets. And yeah, I mean, we say this time and time again in transfer windows. Despite the fact that over the last 14 years, transfer windows haven't been as exciting as previous years. But yeah, you've just got to maintain a touch on reality and not get carried away with paper talk. Some people go around looking at Twitter at accounts which have got no substance to them. They're not journalists. They're fans. People running accounts pretending to be in the know, and that's what creates the hysteria and then the disappointment when we're not even actually signing those players. Bring back Mitro, says Gary. I wouldn't have Mitro back, like.
No. Good to speak. Good for you to be involved, John. Not spoke to you for quite some time. I think you make a really good point on the transfers and the talk and things like that. I think a lot of people allow themselves to get carried away. It gets to silly season. They start writing little teams. You see that the people on Twitter are doing it. They're like, oh, look at this new back four when we'll be linked with 3 players. And we've only signed one of the back 4. You start to think you're setting yourselves up mentally for your own disappointment. And I think that's where this emotional schizophrenia comes in at times like this. I've mentioned it on numerous occasions with Newcastle United social media, but it's particularly prevalent at the moment. Just calm yourselves down. Everyone needs to just take a moment, think about what you're getting angry about. Again, don't start all this rubbish about atting people. Just vent your anger somewhere else. Take the dog for a walk, go for a stroll, have a cup of tea before you think about tweeting. Just chill out and calm down. It's only a game of football.
It is like 100%. The cup of tea analogy, my favourite one. Have a cup of tea. It'll be all right. Tell says he loves the jacket. Cheers, mate. Christmas present off me dad. Heating off, Steve. Yeah, I'm in the office. I've been running around like a blue backside fly, and I got back in just on time to do the show, and I haven't had time to put the heating on, so I've just left my coat on. I've only got a t-shirt on underneath. Typical Geordie lad. No central heating on. There's no central heating in the office, I'm afraid. It's a good old standard heater. Darren says it's make or break for 2 months for Howe before we play tough opposition. For example, Chelsea on the 5th of March to get points on the board. If Howe gets it right, we could be up to 13th or 12th place by March, which is true. I've seen people slagging Howe off. Honestly, I just don't get some of our supporters on proper fans group as well as Liam.
Well, I put a tweet out on Saturday night. And I think that some people decided to attack me with it because I said it was a shocker for Howe. It was a shocker for Howe. It's probably the worst defeat in his managerial career. Probably not far off the top. I can't imagine he's had many others, and he was obviously shaken by it. You could tell that in the post-match. So it's okay to say it's probably the worst defeat the bloke's ever experienced. And also think he's still potentially the man to take Newcastle United forward. It was a blip. It was the first real blot on the copybook, I would say, of Eddie Howe. I'm not critical of him because I think Newcastle need to be much improved. But the proof of the pudding's in the eating. If results don't improve over the next 3 weeks to a month, there should be serious question marks asked of the manager because he has all the tools at his disposal to do that. He'll get a few more players in. He's already got one who significantly improves one side of the pitch, defensively and offensively. They probably could do with another. But I think it's a difficult one because it's okay to criticize the manager if you think he hasn't made a very good substitution, hasn't made a good decision. It's okay. He isn't immune from that. But also think that he's still the man to take Newcastle United forward. And I'm in that camp. I'm in the camp that looks and says Newcastle United have played in Eddie Howe's, I think, 9 or 10 games. They've actually played Cambridge, Brentford, and Norwich at home, St James's Park, not beaten any of them. Despite the other games, virtually every other game they've had has been difficult. They've not won the easy games either. And And I think that's fair to say. That's okay to say as well. But do I think it's too early to judge a manager after 9-10 games? Absolutely. I don't think it's a fair judgment to say he's no longer the man, get him replaced. But I also think it's fair to say, even when Newcastle have been presented with opportunities, and that was the first real opportunity to say, right, get some confidence back, remember what it feels like to win. Go and beat a team 2 divisions below you. Couldn't do it. They couldn't do it. There was something seriously missing from that mentality. And I think it was key that Eddie Howe mentioned mentality 3 times within his first 4 minutes. I transcribed the quotes. 3 times within his first 4 minutes, he mentioned the players, the mentality was right. Like they gave absolutely everything. Nobody asked him a question about whether that they gave anything. That was almost, I felt a little bit for me, that was him masking what he thought was the obvious. I think the obvious was the case. I think you had passengers in that game. Some passengers who have had smoke blown up their backside since the new manager came in. And I think players will probably know who I'm talking about. People out there will know which players I'm talking about.
Yeah.
Ones who said they'll be really good players. One who came off the bench. One who started in midfield. They've had one who started up front. They've had smoke blown up their backside since the new manager came in. And that was an opportunity to really back what the manager was saying. And they let him down. They really let him down.
Yeah, we played worse when Willock came on the pitch, you've got to be honest. Richie was awful, Longstaff was awful. And for me, Joe Linton, with hindsight, if we'd played him up front, we might have got a different result. But it's done, we're out the cup.
Joe Willock, there's something up there. Like,
yeah, nobody knows what's the matter, did they? Nobody knows.
I don't think he's ever the player that we thought or some people thought he was last season. And I made sure that I was very clear in anything that I wrote, saying that it won't be the Joe Willock of last season. But it's not even close to it. It's and the body language. I've mentioned this before on here, Steve. The body language to me is not right.
Something not right.
Something not right. And I hope the lad's all right. I hope it's not issues away from football. I hope he's be able to just focus on his football, because there's a good player there. He's got raw talent. He's a good player. He can become a good player, but he let his manager down.
Yeah, he did.
He wasn't the only one.
Quick one before I give a shout out to the sponsors. Wijnaldum, Darren says, is he any chance of that coming on loan? He's been linked with Arsenal now.
I don't think it's ever been really a prospect, being brutally honest, but we'll have to wait and see. If nothing happens, I think his priority, Wijnaldum's priority will be to stay at PSG.
Yeah.
For the full season. He's only been there 6 months. And if he's forced out the door, which is what it would have to be, I've said this on here before as well, I suspect there'll be 3 or 4 of the top 6, want to take Gini Wijnaldum on a loan deal.
It'll be one of them that's done later on as well, I think. Big shout out to Spider VPN, as always, for all your internet security. Google Spider VPN, they are the boys to trust. Top class service from the guys. They come up at the top of the Google search. Google Spider VPN today. Thanks also to skipsandbins.com. Telephone 0800 25 45 25 3. Email inquiries at skipsandbins.com. Website www.skipsandbins.com. Easy contract free and pay as you go waste collection. Thanks also to L&G Family Funeral Directors 0191 389 7245. And to Garden of Healing Dispensary, CBD, hemp and cannabinoid specialists, www.thegohd.com. Thanks also to Chris and the lads at Arcot Interiors. They are based at the bottom of Heaton Road. For all your kitchen necessities and needs, Google Arcot Interiors. They come up at the top of the Google search list as well. Thanks, as always, to John, who's in the chat. qtechshop.co.uk, the makers of pool tables and snooker tables in Wallsend, Newcastle, and the guy who runs our website, NUFCmatters.com. Thanks also to Jab Signature, jabsignature.co.uk, who produces all of our flyers. Big shout out to Media Arts as well, who do all of our video. And if you're a first-time visitor to the channel, click Newcastle Legends in the bottom right-hand corner and subscribe to the channel. We're over 46,000 now, which is quite a remarkable achievement in such a short space of time. Never taken for granted though, thanks to everybody in the chat this morning, over 300. Hit the thumb up to like the video, click share to your social media, and click into the comments box to post a question or speak to like-minded Newcastle fans. We're also available as a podcast on iTunes, Spotify, and other podcast providers. If you want to join the cult, pay £25 one-off fee, put your phone over the QR code, and you can go straight to the website and become an NUFC members of the cult. And you can get a members pack. It's a fantastic bargain that John from QTech has come up with. You get your cup, you get your pen, you get your scarf, you get your membership card, and you enter into the monthly draw, which we will be doing before the end of the month. So stay peeled. Still time to get a membership to enter into it. We gave away PlayStation 5 last month, so we'll see what John has got to offer. Peter Beardsley, 30th of January. It's an afternoon event at the Time Theatre and Opera House. Tickets still available on Voucher and on Groupon. Heading towards the 350 mark for that one. So there should be a cracking crowd in on a Sunday afternoon to listen to Peter with Mick Lowe's. And I am going to confirm that we're going to have a few of the NUFC Matters crowd there, and we'll be doing a little talking on the stage prior to the gig. So get yourself along, come and meet me, come and meet a few of the other guys, and Peter and Mick. Don't forget as well, you can make a donation to NUFC Fans Food Bank all year round using the website nufcfansfoodbank.co.uk. And a little early shout out for the Dog and Parrot on Saturday. I'll be there with Malcolm at the earlier time of midday. 12 o'clock on Saturday, me and Supermac. So get yourself along there. Okay, back to your comments, questions, etc. And what does Matthew have to say this morning? Matthew Rogers says, Trippier wanted to come back. Atletico showed a bit of class. Mags Cheshire says, any Aaron Ramsey truth? I mean, it looks very much as he is going to move. He's got COVID at the minute, as we know, but it looks as if he's likely to go back to the Premier League, but at a club closer to London, I think.
Yeah, I think that's possible. But as friend of the show, Ben Jacobs said, I've heard as well that there are some legs in it. I think it's one that Newcastle United have been offered and would be interested in, but whether he comes here is another thing altogether. I think, like you said, Steve, it'll be one that gets decided in probably the last week of the window. I think he'd be a good addition. I think it'd be a positive step, but we'll have to wait and see on that one.
Yeah, John says Ramsey's wages are so high because there was no transfer fee. He won't be on anywhere near that in the Premier League. Yep. Darren says Ramsey and Bale. What is wrong with football? Happy to sit at home on big money, overpaying. Don't think Ramsey will be fit enough, says George, for the Premier League. Too much money for little in return. And Kirk says, do not put words in Sevilla's mouth. Sevilla, Lille, Reims, Burnley et al. Need to accept Newcastle have made an offer. They need to show some respect, he says. Mark Tulip says, very surprised about the non-relegation clauses. I think they will end up having to add them. Yes, it's not what they want, but we have to, says Mark. Is Zeko really an option? What about Diego Costa on 6 to 12 month deal and pay him what he needs to come, says Robert.
The first one, I don't think so. Not at this moment. For a number of reasons. And Diego Costa, I think that'll be a bit of a left field one. I think he's been playing has he not been away playing in Brazil? I think maybe a bit of a retirement home type thing for him. Whether that would be the right kind of signing, I don't know.
Yeah, lots of comments coming in. Chris Wood does get stuck in, like ourselves. Burnley are struggling, says Darren. Isaac says, would love Wood. Great focal point. Great option off the bench when we get a higher profile forward in the summer. And yeah, just lots of comments coming in. Not many questions today. On Sky, they were saying that it was the none the day before the first match of the weekend. Not before our game, says CG. I'm not confident of getting anyone in before the weekend, says Ian, which is what, to be fair, Liam touched on earlier on. But let's keep the positivity going. We'll get a good result at the weekend. And Darren reckons that Ramsey should be on a pay-as-you-play deal. I think there's a lot of players should be on that. I've always said there should be a basic wage, and then you get add-ons for goals and man of the match appearances, etc. Well, Daniel,
there is. Most contracts are set up like that. The thing is that most contracts have a high basic wage.
Yeah. And people are on different wages, aren't they? Instead of being on one flat wage.
Yes. So you mostly have... there was a lot of talk of the Andy Carroll one, and the reason why the Andy Carroll one was so interesting was because it was such a low basic, and then it became a high wage with add-ons. Often it's the other way around. Like we're talking about the Ramsey one. My understanding, the Ramsey one isn't the 400 that everybody thinks it is. It might get up towards the 400 if he plays, if Juve win, if he scores, etc., and potentially in the highest possible games as well. It isn't a basic of 400, so he'll be on absolutely nowhere near that should he come back to the Premier League.
Any latest on Diego Carlos from Sevilla? I mean, is that one, we talked briefly about it at the start. I mean, a lot of these players are, like you said, they're first team players. They're not going to want these to go. But is there still legs in that, do you think?
Well, the French lad who plays alongside him, that he's a first choice partnership with Carlos. He's just got injured. So we'll have to wait and see on that one. I think it just sounds a really tough deal for me. It sounds a really tough deal for Newcastle United to do, but there's obviously interest there and they think they can negotiate. And again, these are the type of things that might get done at the end of the window. I think now is a really tough time to do them.
Mags Cheshire says, if you can only get a striker or a centre back in before the next match, which would you prefer? A striker for me.
Yeah. For me, it's a striker as well. I think I'd kind of lulled myself into a false sense of security thinking, I think you could probably get away with St. Maximin playing up front. That shambolic performance he put in against Cambridge, and he was the worst of the lot.
Really? Anthony Stobart came on the other night and defended him. He said that, he did set up 4 chances. I mean,
that's fine. It's opinions. It's about opinions, and that's why we love the game. I would have hooked him at half time, and I said that while watching the game. I thought he slowed.
But then hooking him and bringing Willock on made the team worse.
Oh, it certainly did, yeah. But I was giving the time. I would have put Joe Linton up front against a League One side, for God's sake. I know he's been brilliant.
With hindsight, I would have.
Just put Joe Linton up front and bring Elliot Anderson on, a young lad who finds good spaces, pulls defenders all over the place. Give him a chance. Give him a chance to play. I would have done that because I thought St. Maximin for me, and I like the player. This isn't a criticism of the player. I thought he slowed things down. Too many touches when balls were pinged into him. Far too many touches. Get the ball out, get it back out wide, get it to somebody else. He wasted more opportunities. If he created 4, he could have created 10. He should have created 10 with the amount of balls he had into him. I was really disappointed with him. I thought you can always tell with St. Maximin with 5 minutes into a game what kind of game he's going to have. And 5 minutes into this one, there was a ball played over the top and he trundled along with some big lumber in centre half and couldn't outrun him. And I'm watching him going, right, so you either don't fancy this or you're not fit or it's a bit of both. And by the end of the game, I think it was absolutely both. He wasn't 100% fit. He was trundling around, not running at full pace, which he hasn't done a lot of, to be honest, this season when he's been carrying knocks. And his attitude looked all off to me. It really did.
Yeah, I would agree. Woods back to Leeds, Bamford and Newcastle. Would you like to see Bamford in a black and white shirt?
I would take him. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely take him. No doubt about it.
Yeah,
I think it's lunacy. It's not happened but I think I would take him.
Bamford's having an awful season.
He's been injured. He's been
injured a lot of it. That's 100%. That's why he hasn't, scored the goals. It used to be when they made a call, hello, this is Newcastle United, 1 minute while I put you on hold. I'm not sure what that was about. Must have been having a conversation, Colin. Man United have had this problem for 30 years in the Premier League where they inflate the transfer fees, so it is nothing new. Yeah, it's not just Newcastle who suffer from that kind of thing. Mark says, Joe Linton up top for Saturday, but the midfield will have to step up. Yeah, if we don't bring a forward in, they're not really going to have any option unless Dwight Gale, of course. I haven't asked you about him. Where was he Saturday? Has he got COVID? Is he ill? Or?
Look, I can't. Say don't speculate, but it absolutely sounds like he's got COVID. That hasn't been confirmed, but it absolutely, given the nature of the question after and the answer given by Eddie Howe, where he said he couldn't discuss where he was. They only ever say that when players have got COVID. So I can't tell you that he's definitely got COVID, and I shouldn't really be speculating. But it sounds to me like he's got COVID.
Yeah, okay. Mick T says, I'm a Leeds fan. Rumours all over here. Bamford's Phillips is a certainty. Phillips may be more difficult, probably cashing a player, but we'd be happy Bamford went. So
I don't get it. So come back on, Mick T, and tell me why that seems, because from the outside looking in, it seems like such a strange thing for Leeds United to do. Are they desperate for the cash? Thought they were just involved in a little bit of a mini takeover themselves from America. Doesn't make sense that you would let those players go when they are looking over their shoulder. I know they've got a few points in the bag, and it wouldn't take a whole lot to be safe, but they're not safe. Why would you let your 2 best players go?
Martial and Lingard, another 2 suggested. I mean, Malcolm McDonald's made it quite clear on this platform that he wouldn't want either of those players in. But I would take Lingard. I've got to be perfectly honest. I'm not so sure of Martial, but I think Lingard on loan till the end of the season will keep us up.
But it's the ones that it's the one I think I might have mentioned this last week. When you look at Martial, would I choose to pick Martial? I think we were talking about Aubameyang last week. Would I choose Martial to be the striker that Newcastle United sign if they're only going to sign one? No, I wouldn't. But the simple question you've always got to ask yourself: is he better than the player you would replace? Is Martial better than Dwight Gale? Is he more likely to score goals? The answer is yes. Then so I'll take him absolutely. Lingard I quite like. I think Lingard's a talented player. Both have their own issues. Martial doesn't look a good fit in terms of attitude. Really has been a sulking mess for about the last 2 years, 3 years at Manchester United. Needs out of that football club. Lingard, false promises at Manchester United. Probably hoped he could have stayed there. Hasn't worked out for him. I think he'd go West. If Lingard leaves, I think he'll go West Ham. I don't think there's any doubt about it. I think if he leaves that club, it'll be West Ham. Martial, I would suspect, will probably go abroad. Martial has got the potential to be quite a dangerous signing in the fact that he will not want to come here, and he has, as I say, been a sulk for the best part of the last 2 years. But is he a better footballer? Are we more likely to stay up by signing Martial or signing nobody? And the answer is signing Martial. So if it was him or nothing, I would take it.
Yeah, okay. Lots of stuff coming in. Origi is another one which has been doing the rounds. I know he's injured at the minute, but I mean, again, there was talk of potentially him. Brayton Diaz is another one from Blackburn, where Tony Mowbray's now had to come out and put a price on his head, which always shows that there's potential there for a deal. I mean, they're going to want a lot of money for him, for somebody who's never played in the Premier League. But what's your thoughts on those two names?
Origi for me just sounds like another one of these impossible deals to do. It doesn't make a lot of sense unless Liverpool go out and sign somebody to replace him, and I don't see how they let him go. Liverpool are probably looking to add to their unit in that department at the moment, with long-term doubts over a couple of the players in those positions. But with the AFCON at the moment, the Africa Cup of Nations, they're going to have to do without probably Mane and Salah for the best part of the whole month. And potentially into February. I just don't see why they're letting somebody like Origi go at this point of the season. They might let him go on the last day of deadline day when they know one of them's coming back. But I just don't see how they let them go now.
Julie was asking in the chat about Aubameyang or Oba or Obo or whatever the kids call him. But yeah, it's Aubameyang. Any more thoughts on that over the last week?
Very quiet, isn't he? I think he made a bit of a fool of himself, didn't he, going out for his meal and drinks and that was not a party apparently in Dubai. He made a bit of a fool of himself there. So I think that shines a light on the attitude of that player at the moment. But again, you've got to ask yourself, is he better than Dwight Gale? The answer is yes. So would you take him? Absolutely.
Okay, what's your thoughts on Dubravka, Maximin and Joe Willock so far? Well, you've already touched on Willock and Maximin. Dubravka's come back from a bad injury. I've seen a bit of negativity towards him on social media over the last couple of weeks since he came back in. He went down. It looked a fairly innocuous challenge, and he went down. And it does seem as if we've had to bring him back quickly. I'm not sure if that's the case, but I mean, again, I would much rather have him in goal than the other options at the moment.
I seen he got a lot of criticism for that about the going down and the injury thing and the challenge, but he was. I watched him for the rest of the second half. He was carrying an injury. It must have been something. He's taken a knock because he was holding and limping for quite a bit of the second half, even with 5 and 10 minutes to go. He wasn't right. I don't think Dubravka's been great since he come back in, but he's still the best goalkeeper at the football club, hands down. So I think they're just going to have to ride it out. And what you would hope is with better players in front of him, he'll probably improve as well. He brought everybody up on last season when he came back into the team, and I see him as a large catalyst to that improvement towards the back end of last season, was bringing Dubravka back into the team. Hasn't had the same impact this season, but nothing's worked this season, no matter what. We had a takeover bounce. We had a manager booted that everybody didn't like bounce. We had chief executives that nobody liked leaving. We've had new manager. We had the new manager bounce twice. The one where he was meant to be in the dugout and wasn't. Then when he was in the dugout, we've had every bounce possible. Then a new signing still didn't get a bounce. So it doesn't surprise us that literally nothing has worked. It's almost the cursed season, dare I say it? Like literally anything and everything that could have gone wrong or should have been a catalyst to change hasn't brought about change at Newcastle United. It's been much of a muchness and more of the same.
Yeah. Jasmine says, pathetic how nobody except Wilson can score goals regularly. Are they wearing Tommy Cassidy's wellies or something? Yeah, they're not that good. Yeah, it has been a week today since Dave left us. Yeah, it's been a very emotional week for a lot of people I know, and it was just great to see him getting a lot of positive comments on social media, and great coverage in the Chronicle as well. So it's always nice to remember him. Tell says, do you think any other youngsters could step up for Saturday? I was surprised they never got the chance versus Cambridge. I can't see it, Tell. I genuinely can't. If they're not going to get a game against Cambridge, I can't see Eddie Howe taking a gamble against Watford. What's your thoughts, Neil?
Seems to be a real reluctance to use them at the moment. I don't get it. I think it was a perfect time to play at least one of the two against Cambridge. I really do, but he's gone as strong as possible, hasn't he? I don't know. I think I can't get it. I think it would have been a perfect chance. A bit of energy. He had 5 subs to make. He could have made 5 subs in that game, and he chose to only make 3. Maybe he didn't think the time was right, but when is the right time? When is the right time for these kids? I think that was perfect. A perfect opportunity to play them, and you'll not get an opportunity like that now between now and the end of the season. So if that's going to be your approach, I think they should probably, for their development as footballers, should probably let them go out and play games somewhere else.
Ross hasn't given you a lot of money to spend, Liam, but he says you've got 30 million quid for a striker for the weekend. Who are you going to go for and why?
I think striker's the hardest one to pick because I've not seen one striker name. We did a piece in Newcastle World with about the 10 that have been linked in the last couple of days, where I think there's a definite outstanding candidate. I think it's a really tough place to bring a striker in January. This January, I don't think the players are available, and ones who are available, you're not sure about, or they're not sure about Newcastle United. So it's a really, really tough one. I don't know. I've said this all along. I think the best strikers you'll probably get are ones towards the end of the window in the loan market. I think that's probably when you'll get your striker. But is that going to be enough to keep Newcastle United in the division? The Callum Wilson's injury has basically thrown the cat among the pigeons, hasn't it?
Yeah, the Geordie says, question to both of you. 2 players this window now. Who are you going to pick? I'll stick with Connor Cody as my first choice, and second choice I'd take Brereton Diaz as the striker.
I'm not picking names, honestly. I'm just not putting it out there. I'm not playing that game because I think there's so many at the moment, so many links, so many irons in the fire. I wouldn't want to pin down. I would like Botman as a centre half. I think he's probably the one they've wanted. So ideally that one, and strikers I honestly wouldn't know. I can't pick one.
Yeah, Isaac mentions playing Joe Linton up front. Yeah, we both covered that earlier on. I think we both would if there was no striker brought in. Toom were unfortunate against Cambridge. Surely on paper they should have won, but Cambridge played well and their goalkeeper had a great game. Exactly. Yeah.
Look, everybody keeps saying this, and of course it is. It was a Premier League team against a League One team. A full strength Premier League team should not be getting beat of a team 16th in League One. I don't care how well the team in League One plays. It's criminal that something like that happens. It should never happen. We know it does. It's football. Things like this do happen. But
magic of the cup.
Yeah, it shouldn't happen, really. It does, but it shouldn't.
Magic of the cup. Matty Longstaff did okay on his debut. Just need to be brave, says Ross, with regards to playing younger players. When is the cut-off to register a player for Saturday game? Midday Friday, Liam said at the start of the show. Diego Costa, short-term, could work. He would spark up a good relationship with our crowd, says John. Tom's wanting to know, have you any idea when Callum Wilson will be looking to target for his comeback?
Well, it said 8 weeks from the point from Saturday, so I think anybody would just need to have a little look at the fixtures and see when there might be a return date, but you're looking at March, aren't you? So...
Yeah. Any update on Ashley taking the club to court, or is this a load of rubbish?
No, I think it's true, but I've no idea what it's about.
One would imagine it has something to do with removal of signs a little bit earlier. That is the rumour that seems to be going around. Where that's come from, I don't know, but it is just a rumour. Howe is still in the process of getting players to work in his system. He doesn't have time to test out young players, says Steve.
Yeah, I think I can see the reasons why a strong team, 7 days either side of the game, team that has only won 1 game all season, get that winning feeling back, but it massively backfired. massively backfired. And I thought there was plenty of opportunity to maybe at least bring an Anderson or a White into the team. They are both good players. They're both highly rated. You're not going to get many opportunities like that.
Yeah, Mike Stewart says the fans deserve a proper explanation on Dwight Gale someday. We've got a half-decent striker already at the club. Couldn't be described as a poor player and definitely could play a role right now.
Oh, come on, Mike. I don't often disagree with people on here. But tell me when Dwight Gale has proven himself at Newcastle United to look exactly like a Premier League striker. Newcastle United, Rafa Benitez, that first season was desperate to replace Dwight Gale because he knew he wasn't able to rely on him week in, week out. All he was allowed to bring in that summer was Hosselu. He tried to replace him the summer after. We've been trying to replace Dwight Gale as a Premier League striker for years. He was not a regular Premier League striker at Crystal Palace even all the time. That's because he's got levels. I don't mind Dwight Gale as a player. He was a good servant in Newcastle United for the first few years. Come on. Why do people, when players leave the team or sit on the bench for a long time, suddenly think they're going to be reincarnated as the answer? Dwight Gale is not the answer to any of Newcastle United's problems. And there is the small part that he's probably got COVID at the minute. So that explains his recent absence.
West Ham fan, big shout out to you. Do you really think Lingard or anyone on that par will come to you guys sitting at the bottom of the table? I think you need to go down and clear out before coming back. That's just an opinion from a West Ham fan.
I don't want to go down.
A lot of people
going down achieves nothing.
A lot of people agreeing with you. Daz doesn't. He says, Liam, you're overthinking. Football is a lottery. Simon says, agree with Liam as usual. Tough window to get a striker. Keith just says, spot on, Liam. Couldn't agree more. The boy Holmes says that there's a game on Friday, so it's noon Thursday.
Well, I've just had confirmation from the Premier League.
So there you go. The boy Holmes. He's had confirmation from the Premier League. Kieran says, would it not be better idea to take a top club's fringe striker on loan before Saturday rather than waiting for a permanent deal?
Who's letting them go? Come back with some names, Kieran. Who's letting them go?
Yeah, Skinner says, lads, what's happened to Longstaff and Willock? Both shocking again on Saturday. Well, we touched on Willock.
Yeah.
We've mentioned Longstaff many times on this show. And, you know, I keep pointing to the fact that he was rushed back from that cruciate ligament injury, but he's just never been the same player. He's never, we've seen flashes of it since Howe came back, but that was a poor game for him on Saturday. And sometimes it comes down to who you're playing alongside.
Longstaff, every time I give up on him and think, right, that's got to be it now, he drags you back in with a couple of solid performances and you see flashes of the player that there was or is there. Saturday again was just utterly shambolic. Gifts the possession away in really bad areas. I can't make any more excuses for him. This is it. It's now or never. He either performs or he doesn't. And I think it's going to be one to watch in the final week or two of the window, that one. If Newcastle United can do a lot of business, I think he'll be one of the cuts for the 25.
Jasmine thinks we'll beat Watford 2-0. Keith says, great show. Kirk says the Cambridge game could have been played 10 times and Newcastle would have won 9 of them. Newcastle created 25 chances and their keeper pulled off a Gordon Banks performance.
They didn't create 25 chances. That's not true. It's not a fact. They had 9 shots on goal, by the way, on target. That's not 25. They didn't create 25 chances.
There we go. Martin Heron says he's got some front, Ashley. He leaves our club in a right mess. Then he's suing Amanda. What a parasite. Dwight Gale isn't Premier League quality. One of those who's superb in the Championship but can't step up, unfortunately. So Gale will be great for you in Division 1 next year, says Matthew, who I've got a feeling might support a different team. Players need to be registered before Thursday, 12 noon to players their games on Friday. That's coming from Sky Sports, says Mary Ann.
Yeah, that's right. So the teams that play on Friday night need to have their players on Thursday.
But we don't. We play Saturday.
Yeah. So
that's the point.
Yeah.
That is the point. Dribble says Monkey Hangers, Hartlepool, 4-6 for relegation. Interesting. And what's the odds on winning the cup? I'm not worried about going down. I don't want to, but if we do, we do, and we rebuild from there, says Tom. Gavin just says, any positive news, lads?
Just hold tight, Gavin. We'll get there.
Yeah, Longstaff is bang average, Championship player at best, says Matthew. Good point, Gavin. Actually, most things are positive for Newcastle, so it's hard to fathom the air of despair. Remember that we've just been taken over and we are the richest club in the world. Tom Dixon says, watch Watford against Leicester. They were poor. We will beat them 100%. Kirk says, check the BBC website. They created 25 chances, 9 shots on target, which is what Liam said, 9 shots on target, but it's the creation of chances that he says.
Yeah. So there's a difference between creation of chance and shots on goal. There's a difference. So there was not 25 chances created. If you're classing some of for example, Joe Willock hitting row Z in the Gallagher with a shot from 35 yards as a chance, then I'm sorry, you need to relearn.
Which he's getting really good at.
Yeah, you need to relearn football.
Is that what he's practicing? Is that what he's practicing in training? Yeah. Martin Aaron says, yes, Gale is a championship striker, but could have done with him against an old third division team. Watford is Dwight's level. Hire him in, says
I think he's got COVID, though. That's the point.
Yeah, I hope you do smash the off Watford, says Matthew. Thank you, mate. Great show today, says Tom. So, yeah, Watford. It's a 6-pointer, Liam. We've got a couple of them coming up. We've got Leeds and we've got Everton, of course. But let's concentrate on Watford. Watford at home. How do you see this going, mate?
I think it's going to be tough. I think it's going to be tight. But I do think we've got better players. I think Newcastle United win this one. I think they'll be close, like I said. But I think Newcastle United win this one 1-0.
Holly's gone for 0-0 already. You've gone for 1-0. Would you bring Dummett back into the starting lineup, says Skinner?
It depends on his fitness. I think it's a big ask. We've seen him rush back under Steve Bruce before, and it wasn't the best idea. Depends on the COVID situation, on who's back and who's not. Mm-hmm. We've got some. I'm not going to say who's got COVID and who hasn't because I don't know this, but there's some key absentees. I mean, Jamal Lascelles wasn't anywhere near involved in the squad. Hasn't had a best of seasons. It's been a really tough time of things actually. Kieran Clark was an obvious one who was missing, but has missed a few games now. I personally, I think Paul Dummett's one of the better defenders at the football club, and I would like to see him, but I'm not totally disappointed if the back four that played the other day has to play. The problem isn't looking at Emil Kraft at centre half because I think he can do our job there if required. I think the problem's at left back. Problem's always at left back.
Play Manquillo there. Manquillo there.
Manquillo he played left back in one of the games recently and he was a bomb scare. I think he's probably got to play him because Matt Ritchie can't do it. He literally, every team that plays against, when they see Matt Ritchie's name at left back, are targeting him. Every team. Even Cambridge did it. I think there needs to be a change there. I agree with you, actually. I'd probably play Manquillo because Matt Ritchie just can't do that job.
Kirk's still going on. Correction, he says 72% possession, 27 shots, 10 on target. Granted, all the chances were not quality, but that shows on one team won by parking the bus. One team created chances.
Look, Kirk, we're going to have to agree to disagree. I agree with all the top bit. You're right. Yeah, I think Newcastle did do a bit going forward. Cambridge didn't park the bus. They did. That's actually unfair on them. I thought they had a little go. That first half, they had a go. I think they created. You could argue, apart from the last 5-10 minutes of the half, they created the better chances. The penalty, they had 3 or 4. The guy had a header after 5 minutes. Free post, back post. They created chances. I thought Cambridge were what deserved that, and that's just not just me being disappointed with the performance. I thought Cambridge deserved it.
Yeah, me too. It's gone now. It's pointless arguing over it. We've just got to hope that we've got the same amount of chances and we take some of them on Saturday. That's the bottom line.
This one is that summed up the day. I mean, I'm playing at the Walker Dome on a Thursday night, and I wouldn't have hit that shot. How off balance that Almiron was when he thought he was going to be able to hit it. What professional footballer thinks that that's possible?
So frustrating. That it did sum up the day. That it really did. If you're interested in the Retro Show, we are back tomorrow night, 6:00. It's the final Retro Show. We've done every team. We've done a lot of the European games in the last episode over Christmas. We're doing Barcelona tomorrow. We chose to do a big finale on Barcelona. So obviously we'll be looking at the 3-2 win. So make sure you join the chat tomorrow night, 6:00 with me, Mitch, with George, with Steve, with Stu and with Steve Wilkinson. We'll be chatting about the game, our own memories from the game, talk about going across to the new camp if anybody out there went to the new camp. But get yourself on tomorrow night to the Retro Show. It is the final one. We will be replacing it with another show, but please jump on. Just a quick chance to plug Newcastle world, Liam, before we finish. How's it going as the head Hod show these days?
Really good. Really enjoying the process. I think Jordan's done really well. We've said we'll get him on the show, didn't we, Steve? We'll get him on at some point.
Oh, he's gotten it loaded now. I mean, he's made his home there. But no, joking aside, we'll get him on. We'll get him on if
he was poached out of nowhere.
You just didn't. You were too busy. We got the bite put on him. We told you to do your job, and then you've just let him slip through your hands because you're too busy running 3 different companies or whatever you're doing these days. Do you sit like Alan Sugar in the boardroom going, "You're fired"?
Not yet. Hopefully,
you sit in your living room doing a Zoom with a dog at your lap, going, "You're fired."
Yeah, I know. There's a couple of times I've sent you audio clips, isn't there, Steve, where you're like, "Who's he talking to here? Who's darling?" And I'm thinking I'm getting
some kind of X-rated phone call, and then he's going, "Darling, darling," and it turns out it's actually the dog. Yeah, hilarious.
So yeah, Newcastle World, love and life. Give it a follow on all social media or on all channels, and check it out at newcastleworld.com. If you like, honestly, we'll do everything. We'll try and shine a positive light on the city of Newcastle. A lot of restauranty, a lot of lifestyle, crime, health, anything and everything you could want on there. So yeah, give us a follow on the social media channels. Your support's always appreciated.
Brilliant stuff. As always, thanks, Liam, for being honest and getting the lowdown on the transfers. And as anything big breaks, let us know and we'll try and get you on for 5 minutes just to let us know what's going on. But fingers crossed we'll get somebody over the line before the weekend. Have a good week, mate. See you next Tuesday. Take care, pal.
Cheers.